I want to be sober, but I love getting high. I want world peace, but I want to watch World Star. I want to be a feminist, but I'm still watching porno. Of course, they're lyrics from Macklemore. Who else would write that shit? A guy that wants to change the world, but does very little to do much of anything. I mean, yeah, sure, a few tracks in the past have had quite a strong message. Same Love, I think it's still quite an underrated song in terms of being like a hip hop song about, gay marriage and gay rights, which came off preachy for sure, but name any other hip hop artist that did that over the past like 25 years of or whatever, however long hip hop has existed. Like, who else has done that, you know? So I've always praised Macklemore in that sense. He'll go the extra mile to put out a good message. Sometimes they just get lost a bit in what they're trying to aim for. This new album is better than that last album. That last album was terrible. The only good song on that album was Downtown, and that was pretty much a split song in terms of how many people thought it was corny as fuck to how many people thought it was great. I thought it was pretty damn good. There are no highlights on this one though, honestly. Like, I'm not gonna lie here, I don't think there's a standout track on the album. Marmalade stands out for being a really just silly song, to be honest. It's kind of funny, but I can't listen to that. And the opening track does have that usual, like, uplifting, inspiring, Macklemore-esque sound, which I honestly only thought he would do whilst with Ryan Lewis. I thought that was due to his production, but clearly he's carried it on here. And it just doesn't really do anything for me. I don't know what it is. I just don't think it's kind of impacting me in the way that Macklemore wants it to. It really doesn't help that his lyrical game has completely dropped, like, to just nothing on this album. Like, he barely says anything worth noting. Apart from that opening lyric that I referenced, there weren't really that many bad lines on this album, but there's nothing standing out. The production rides the waves on this album, to be honest. I do think this is actually quite a well-produced album. There are some pretty decent guest vocalists as well, but the production all around is pretty solid. I'm not, against any of these songs. Some sound really well made and quite catchy. It's just Macklemore as a rapper's just doing nothing. I don't know. There are even a few trap beats on this album. Of course, there's an Offset feature. If you don't have Offset or Quavo on your album, then it's not an album anymore, basically. And that track isn't too bad, actually. And maybe Macklemore isn't the best over a trap beat, but it doesn't go over terribly. We have a guy called Otieno Terry, who puts in a very Anderson Paak-esque feature, which I enjoyed. That's a really funky track, probably the best on the album, I'd say, just for that beat. But at the same time, I do feel like I just wished I was listening to Anderson Paak because, he kills those songs all the time. Macklemore doesn't really make that song any better than what any other funky R&B singer would do. Skylar Grey does her usual over-the-top vocal performance that is supposed to like elevate the track to new heights, but like the first track, it just, flies by without really leaving an impact. And we have Kesha on this album too. Kesha! Yeah, again, actually, this is not a bad song, actually. When I first heard Kesha, I was like, who is this vocalist? And I was like, oh, it's Kesha! And, when I realised it was Kesha, I was actually quite happy that they'd collabed because it worked quite well. We get some overly sentimental and sappy songs towards the end of the album. I remember people saying that Daniel Caesar album was too sappy, but listen to this Macklemore album, man. You'll find sappiness on some of these songs, seriously. But yeah, there's a nice closing track that's an ode to his daughter, which is it's nice. I can't argue with songs like that. They usually go over pretty well. But it's in like the Macklemore kind of way. It's like, he just never sticks to landing. I don't know how or why, but he just hasn't been able to do it since The Heist, and even that album was riddled with loads of mediocre songs, but there were those few tracks that worked really well, like Wings, but you just can't really grasp that style anymore. I don't know. I think with this one as well, he really relied heavily on features, like so many choruses were from random vocalists that sounded like other people. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a female singer on here that sounded a bit like Halsey too, which put me off each time with these features. And his verses don't add anything to the album, they just kind of there. It's very diverse in sound, which I do appreciate, but at the end of the day, it's a Macklemore album, you know? It's just what you expect, hit or miss. A lot of tracks that don't hit the landing, you know. I'm often looking forward to the feature on the track rather than Macklemore's verses, which just don't stick with me at all. I can't remember a single one where he was like, oh, Macklemore, that was a good line. And this album, unlike his past few, don't have any of the high highs. There are no big singles that like you want to return to and have fun with. So this one's probably the most forgettable so far. It's mediocre. It's a D. It's a D. You already knew that though. It's a D. I'm out. Please subscribe.